entertainment to our community. If you guys have ever been here, but if you ever want to catch a show, it's fantastic. Those people are wonderful. I've been to a few of them here already. I also want to thank our vendors who brought refreshments tonight. We've got alcohol and we've got food. So I want to thank Cisco Catering. Char is here somewhere, right? Thank you so much. Fred from Goshen Wine and Spirits, GB Wine. He brought beer and some other sodas and everything. And then I also want to thank Sunset Meadow Venues. Rudy is also here too. So thank you very much for providing. Also, you'll notice a lady bobbing around taking photos. That's Cheryl Martinelli. Thank you so much for taking pictures for us tonight. The whole board is here tonight. We want to thank everybody on our board of directors for helping put this together tonight. So thank you for that. I do have some house rules. Actually, Joe has house rules. No smoking on the property, please. Please, please, please. And your emergency exits are here, downstairs, and out the back over there. Don't jump out that way. Are there stairs? There's stairs. Okay. No jumping. No. All right, so we are going to get started, and I want to introduce Ruth Dwyer.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much to the Goshen Business Circle for asking me to moderate tonight's forum. Full disclosure, I know they called me an expert in the notice. I am not proclaiming to be an expert at doing this, but so we'll fumble our way through it as best we can, but I will do my best to keep things moving. On your tables, you're going to see these cards. There should be some pens as well. And I already have a bunch of questions from the audience. That the idea tonight is that the questions are going to be driven by you all, not by me. So I have a bunch of questions already that have been sent up. I think we have a runner who, if you have a question, you can write it down and kind of let her know. I think it's Judy, right? Judy? Yes. So there's Judy back there. So if you have a question that you'd like to write down, that you'd like to pose to the candidates, that's great. Judy will grab it from you and then she'll make sure I get it so that we can add it to the pile. Not professing that we're going to get through this very thin pile, and there's some repeats in here. So if it's a topic that a lot of people are asking about, I'll try to, kind of coalesce it down into one question and get that topic going so that we hit as many different talking points and different issues as possible tonight. Okay? Any questions? Oh, so that's the idea for how it's going to work. If at the end I run out of questions and we still have a little bit of time, we might open it up for audience questions if somebody didn't get a chance to write it down or the runner didn't come up or I didn't ask it, okay? If we run out of time, we run out of time. I'd like to thank all the candidates for being here with us tonight. We have, for the 64th District, we have Barbra Breor and Maria Hort. And for the 38th Senate District, we have Stephen Harding and Justin Potter. So what I think we're going to start off doing is I'm just going to have each candidate do like a little introduction, no more than 2.5 to 3 minutes of who they are, why they're running, for the seat that they're running for, and then we'll jump into questions after that. At the very end, I'll give them a chance to kind of sum it all up at the very end with a last kind of closing remark as well. I talked to them already. At the 2.5-minute mark, I'm going to ring the bell slightly, just so that they know that they're about 30 seconds away from their time limit. A little louder. I'm very trepidation pumped up. So that's what we'll do, just so that they know where they are time-wise in terms of their answers, so that we can, make sure everyone gets an opportunity to speak. So with that, I'm just going to start at my right and have Justin Potter go ahead and just give us a little introduction as to who he is and when he's running.
Hello everyone, it's Justin Potter. I grew up on a small dairy farm in Washington, Connecticut off of 109. Went to the Region 12 public schools and graduated from Chappaq in 1998. There I met my wife, Claire, and we now live in Kent with our 2 young children. I graduated from Cornell in 2002 with a major in economics. After graduating, I moved down to New York and spent a couple of years working at a law firm. And growing up, I always thought to myself that I always wanted to start my own business, my own small business. And I was thinking about going to law school, but then I decided if I just went off to law school without taking this opportunity to start a business. I'd always regret it. So at 25, I maxed out my credit cards and emptied out my 401k, which granted only had $2,000 in it at the time, and got the business going. It's an online e-commerce business, and I still run that business today. So I understand firsthand the challenges and frustrations of running a business, a small business in particular. In large corporations, CEOs are ones that get paid first. With a small business, the owners get paid last. I know that reality quite well. So in Kent, I serve as the president of affordable housing. Kent Affordable Housing. Housing is a tremendous issue that's facing our communities and facing our businesses as well. I was approached to run for state senate. It's I'm not the type of person where if there's a problem, you complain about it. If there's a problem, you get to work fixing it. And that is why I'm running for state senate. Connecticut has a number of tremendous issues that need to be dealt with in a constructive manner, and I hope to be a part of doing that. So, thank you.
So thank you. Good evening, everybody. I just want to start by saying you made the right choice not to go to law school. As a lawyer myself, it was very smart choice on your part. As a lawyer myself, it's indebting yourself to the law profession. It's a difficult profession, as Ruth knows well. It can be enjoyable. But anyway, getting on to who I am, I'm proud to be the 30th District State Senator. I have been for the last 2 years. Previous to that, I was state representative in my hometown of Brookfield. And I've lived in the northwest corner my entire life. I've stayed here my entire life, and now I'm growing my family here. I married a beautiful wife, Kelly, brought her into our corner of the state, and we have 2 young children, Carter, who's 6, and Piper, who's 3. I was telling Justin that I'm missing his open house tonight. It was bad scheduling on my part, but it's better that my wife is there representing the family than me. She's the much better representative of the family. But why I'm running is the same exact reason I first started running for state representative many years back, and that's I saw far too many people at my age leaving the state of Connecticut for opportunities elsewhere. I saw a lot of people in their retirement years on fixed incomes. My parents' friends leave the northwest corner of the state to seek out opportunities elsewhere where it's more affordable. And in Connecticut, we have a cost of living crisis here when it comes down to taxes and fees and making our size of government smaller here work better and more efficient for the people of the state. So it's important to be here with the Goshen Business Circle. The northwest corner is backed by so many small businesses that are the economic drivers, not only for this state, but across our country. And so looking at regulation, looking at taxation, finding ways to make it more affordable to operate your lives, and also more affordable to operate with small businesses is a critical aspect of why I'm running and why I continue to run. And also putting our corner of the state first when it comes down to garnering resources and funding from the state of Connecticut towards open space preservation, curbing overdevelopment and curbing the overdevelopment of high-density housing here in the northwest corner. It's the scenic beauty that we all love here. We need to keep it that way, and I'm proud to support efforts to do that. So thank you for having me.
Always well attended, and so I really want to thank you for doing that. So I grew up in rural Ohio, actually, and my husband, who's here tonight, grew up in rural Pennsylvania, and we moved out here to Connecticut because we wanted to raise our 3 children in a place where they could ride bikes, climb trees, explore the woods without being too worried about now that we have bears out there. Such a question. Actually, we can handle that too. So it was that quality of life, the open space, the small town feel that we both grew up with, and we wanted to share with our children, which is why we wanted to hear this beautiful. I now I chair the finance committee. I sit on energy, and I sit on energy and technology, and I sit on the environment committee. I've been on the environment committee throughout my career here because I think that open space many businesses out here in the northwest corner that are dependent upon having a pristine, green environment here. That's what drives a lot of people, that's what brought a lot of people to this district, is what keeps them here. So that's the reason why I serve on that committee. I serve on energy and technology because things like broadband and connectivity also are important to making sure we can keep, to others' points about keeping young people here who can build small businesses and communicate possibly with, you know, the two other cities that we're in between. That's a really important part of economic development. And I now have the privilege of chairing the finance committee, which means that I can make sure that small town voices and needs get heard in Hartford, in the room where the budget is being negotiated. And that means all kinds of things. It means that the conversation about, you know, solid waste is being heard in that finance committee, and we're going to make sure that we have money to devote to that. It's going to mean to make sure that we have money for open space grants. And it'll make sure that we have a responsible budget. We are responsible for making sure that the fiscal guardrails, you know, stay in place and that we have a stable budgeting process, which enables us, among other things, to pass the largest tax cut in state history, which we did last year. So really proud to represent this part of the world in Hartford and make sure our voices are heard, and really grateful for your time. So thank you.
All right, my name is Barbra Breor. I am Goshen Town Clerk. I have been so for 28 years. I am Connecticut born and bred. My parents originally started off in Beacon Falls, Connecticut, which is down in Naugatuck, down below Naugatuck. Came here when I was 8 years old, went through the school system, graduated from Oakland in 1988, went to Northwestern Connecticut Community College for a little while. I started volunteering in the town clerk's office while I was in high school in 1985. And things kind of took over from there. I took on many roles. I've been a moderator in town. I have been a machine mechanic for the old-fashioned leather machines. Dating myself now. I'm vice president of the Goshen Agricultural Society, the first vice president of the Connecticut Fair Association, so I have lots of leadership skills. I have been president and secretary of the Goshen Fire Company. And my thing about running for state rep is everybody's voice is very important. Everybody needs to be heard. So as town clerk, I know how to listen to everybody. I know how to react with everybody. I know how to get it out there. Even on the fair, I have to listen to everybody complain all the time. How come you don't have enough of this? Give me a little bit of more of that, you know? You learn how to communicate and be a representative for the entity. So that is why I'd like to be a state rep. And I can't say that I sit on any committees because, you know, I'm not there yet. Maybe one of these days. But thank you.
First, to all of you, none of you needed the bell. So well done. All right, so for the first question, in all of these cards, I bet you can guess probably a topic that came up multiple times in these cards, and that is, I'm just gonna call it the Eversource question. And the biggest question being, obviously, people have been seeing a huge increase in their rates, and in their bills when they get that Eversource bill. It's a sense of dread that they're feeling. And I think people are looking for all four of you to address that issue and how you think it should be handled. So, we can start with, why don't we start with the Senate side, and then we'll jump over to the representative side. So I'll let you guys decide which one of you wants to take that question first.
We had a rock, paper, scissors competition.
It was 2 out of 3.
Let me tell you, I won that competition.
Not competitive.
So, I do support a plan which I think would provide some immediate and long-term relief. And really, there's multiple aspects to this. I think that this problem began, frankly, when we deregulated the market, and this is long before any of us got up to Hartford or ran for office in Hartford. We made a really bad decision 30 years ago that frankly put us in this position now and led us into where we are today. That's number one. Number two, Eversource UI, Eversource particularly to our community here, no angels in any of this. You see what these corporate executives are making at Eversource, money hand over fist, and meanwhile they're charging us ridiculous rates. We have the third highest electric rates in the country, second in the continental US. Unacceptable across the board. However, even more than Eversource and UI and the corporate executives and the money they make, all leading to this, obviously, is the fact that we have policies in Hartford that have driven up the cost exponentially of energy. We are forcing ourselves to purchase wind energy, solar energy, at sometimes 3 times what the market rate is, and you're all subsidizing it. And that, I believe that's unfair. I believe in finding ways to find green initiatives to make this work, to make our energy sources more renewable, more greener, but not doing it at 3 times the cost and then forcing you on the backs of all of you to pay for that. Further than that, we put this public benefit charge that you all saw on your bill recently into your costs, and that's baked into your bills. Many states approach this issue, and all the initiatives that are in there are on the state budget, and you can prioritize that and have transparent discussion surrounding those initiatives there. For some folks, it was 25% of their bill last month and going forward. So I think there's multiple aspects we can do. We can cap the PPA agreements to maybe 1.5 times what the market rate is, so we can still pursue green energy resources, but doing it at an affordable way. We can provide ARPA funds to provide immediate relief to ratepayers to downsize that public benefit cost that you're all being forced to pay for. And we can start phasing out that public benefit, moving it into the confines of your state budget, and stopping this hidden tax that's being baked into your energy costs. I think these are 3 parts of my plan that I support. I support going into special session now to do that. I'm not going to get into that tonight. We can have a discussion about that, because I think we can provide immediate and long-term relief now and stop the bleeding, frankly. But those are 3 approaches that I support taking, have continued to support taking in reducing our energy rates here.
So I volunteer at the Kent Food Bank down there in Kent. We're dealing with this rate hike right now. In early 2023, there was a similar rate hike, another spike in rates. And we had families that we had never seen before coming into the food bank then. And that sort of at that time, it sort of struck me as something that absolutely should not be happening. With a regulated utility, we should not be putting families in a situation where they need to turn to the food bank to make ends meet for the month. I think that there's bipartisan blame to go around, but also very much bipartisan agreement that this is an issue that absolutely has to be dealt with. Connecticut families and businesses are at the breaking point when it comes to energy costs. I was stopped in a business down in Brookfield last week and had a nice long conversation about the business. It was she started her business in May, and then she got walloped by these costs in July, and it wiped out the few gains that she made starting her business. And when you're starting a business, it's such a tenuous time. So a few things. So the regulator, PURA, they have discretion about what they can do with this particular public benefits charge. They could have chosen to start the payback period earlier. They could have chosen to spread it out over a longer time frame, but they chose to do it now and cram it into 10 months, which resulted in a much larger hit on customer bills. I think the discretion of PURA should be looked at and constrained so we don't see a spike like this in the future. I also think we have to consider putting together a stabilization fund. So, the energy prices go up and down, and Connecticut has benefited in the past when the energy prices have gone down. It brought to the millstone deal, and I think we do something in terms of creating a stabilization fund, so customers aren't hit with these big charges. But just overall, again, this is an issue that absolutely has to be dealt with, and we have. I see you're going for the bell, so we have to solve this issue. Oh, that was 30 seconds?
That's maybe 30-second warning.
I know for next time.
Okay. All right, and then moving over to the rec table, whichever one of you would like to start.
I might as well get this out of the
There
way.
you go.
Okay, I'm close. So there's a lot of those other wonderful people that sit there that keep on raising our rates. The other things, the Eversource should not be a tax collector for the state of Connecticut. There's no connection to the state of Connecticut besides giving us electricity, so they have to stop. Things need to be changed. Why are we paying for EV charging stations in our electric bill? I could be wrong, but it's just one of those little things that I don't believe in. That's a choice that people make, so perhaps let's find another way to get EV charging stations out there. Otherwise, I like keeping things short and sweet because people lose attention. So, Maria, your turn.
Closing, I don't know. So I sit on the Energy and Technology Committee, and I joined that committee because of broadband issues here in the Northwest corner, which are a big problem. But I quickly became aware of the incredible problem that we have with our electric rates, which, first of all, as Steve has pointed out, we are the third most expensive in the country, not a ranking that we particularly want, for all kinds of complicated reasons, but also because we haven't managed it very well over the past. And also, I came to believe that the complexity is sort of intentional on the part of our energy providers here, and they keep us from being able to make real change. So let's break down, people got hit with a massive bill, and again, there is, I think, as a bipartisan support, several of things, like Barb just mentioned, having a consumer advocate on Pure. There are 2 empty seats on the Pure board right now. We absolutely should have a consumer advocate on that board. She's 100% right about that. There are, the rate spiked for people for a variety of reasons. For some people, it spiked because usage went up, because this is the hottest summer on record. That's climate change. Goshen is also being hit by volatile weather conditions that are wiping out, infrastructure and costing the town a lot of money. So we have to look at that seriously and take a look at what it's costing us already. And that was part of why people paid a lot. The other part was the public benefits charge, as others, and I don't want to, as Barb said, bore everybody with the complexity here, but part of that, 3/4 of that was due to the Millstone contract, which we bailed out before either of us were in office.
I voted against it.
Or you were
I was in the
not.
House, but I voted.
It was a bipartisan agreement, and you can make arguments on both sides, but I was not here. And it is clearly a pretty bad deal for us right now. It does help us when fossil fuel costs spike, as they did in '22, but it's hurting us right now because they're going back down, and we have to make up that difference. And so the rest of it is that the moratorium on payments of people shut-offs during the pandemic, which people should know that everybody that's in that category is on a payment plan, so they are being paid back over time. That said, those kinds of investments and the EV charging station stuff, those infrastructure investments, I think, can be better run by and organized by an organization in Connecticut such as the Connecticut Green Bank. Among other things, for example, their borrowing costs are lower, and they have a more explicit mandate to do with this kind of thing. So that's one of the things that we will be looking at in terms of adjusting PURA, widening out, I'm going to go for my third second. Widening out the period over which these charges are made so that it dampens the spike that people have to pay, and trying to get them financed by other organizations with the state so they can be dealt with explicitly.
So I'm going to piggyback off of the Eversource question with kind of a little bit of a similar topic but a broader question. And that is, what can we do to make the cost of living in general in Connecticut more affordable for Connecticut residents? I think a lot of people have, in these cards, kind of indicated that it's hard for people young families especially, to live here and to afford to live here. So what ideas do you all have to make it more affordable for people to live in Connecticut, stay in Connecticut, and want to be in Connecticut? So again, we can start with the Senate side. Whoever didn't go first last time, go first this time.
Affordability, cost of living is sort of the top issue I hear across the district. It's a big and diverse district, but affordability is the top issue. It's important for elected officials and candidates to talk about what they can actually do something about, and sort of not make promises that they can't possibly keep. Yeah, the biggest expense for most people is housing. It is a tremendous issue, not just for the people who are dealing with the cost of housing, but also our businesses, our volunteer organizations, our schools, so many facets of our communities. So I put forth a proposal. So Vermont, most towns allow accessory apartments because they fit well with the existing form and infrastructure of our towns. With private septic and private well, but a few of them get built because they are very expensive to build. Vermont has a program where they provide funding to middle-class homeowners in exchange for a 5 to 10 year affordability commitment, and that's proven to be very popular in Vermont, and I believe that it can work very well here in Connecticut, even in our most rural communities. So, dealing with the housing situation absolutely has to be done for the sake of our businesses and in our communities. We just touched on the utility rates. That is a huge thing. It's something that the state does have control over, and so we can do something about that. Healthcare is a tremendous issue for so many people, and just simple access to healthcare. If someone needs dialysis in Kent, they have to drive 45 minutes down to Danbury for that. That's another important issue. But so many issues. Circle back to housing. That is an issue that the state has control over, and that we can do something about, and that's why it is such a focus for me, and why it should be a focus for everyone.
So one of the rankings that we talked about we don't want to be in terms of having the third highest electric rates is also highest taxes, right? Connecticut is some of the highest states that are relying on property taxes. Connecticut is one of the highest tax states in the country. And one of the reasons I first ran for office in the first place, as I said, people were leaving the state because of the high rate of taxes, because of the high rate of property taxes, particularly senior citizens who are on fixed incomes, who can't afford to live here in their retirement years. And these are individuals that love this state, love the Northwest corner, want to see their grandkids raised here, want to see and watch it firsthand, but unfortunately are driven out because of the high cost of living here, particularly as it relates to how government, in our state government, passes down that cost. And unfortunately, we've grown our size of government exponentially during that period of time, I would say over the past few decades here, when we've implemented the income tax, and it's only gone up. Remember when it was supposed to be a sunset in the income tax here in Connecticut? For those of you that have been here long enough, you remember that. Unfortunately, that sunset is nowhere to be found. In fact, we've become more reliant on our income tax and have grown that income tax even further. We continue to tax things like Social Security and pensions. We could look at ways to make our government more efficient, reduce our size of government, and at the same time provide tax relief to our residents here in the state of Connecticut. That can go such a long way to keeping people here in the Northwest corner that they love. One of the things I look at is Marie and I both voted for on a bipartisan basis the 2023 budget, which provided significant tax relief, historic for that. I was happy to support that on a bipartisan basis. But more than that, I also supported a budget that would have provided even more tax relief. I think we could have got even further in providing tax relief to our consumers here and our residents here in Connecticut. Because again, we see the burden that's placed upon all of us, and it's simply unfair. I also think, look at regulation and the regulations that we place on small businesses. We talk about things that become unaffordable. Not only is it taxes and fees, but it's also regulations that small businesses, so many throughout the Northwest corner, have to endure. Look at the FMLA law. We currently have a law where employers up to 50 had to provide FMLA. All understandable, all absolutely a noble cause. Now we've changed that law that if you have one employee, you now have to provide that. I've had countless small business owners come to me and say, Steve, I don't want to hire, I can't hire anybody because of what I might have to incur. And so we have to be smart, even though they're noble causes, we have to be smart about the regulatory burden we're placing upon our small businesses as well, in terms of addressing our costs.
Sure. So, I agree with affordability in Connecticut is a massive talk to people about it, when I knock on people's doors, the issue that I hear the most about, honestly, is housing. That, kids can't afford to stay in this area, if they're lucky, they're living in their parents' basement, and they can't find anywhere to go. Older people who are looking to move out of maybe a home that's too big for them, can't find, they want to stay in their community, can't find a place to go. Housing costs are really, and I think we have seen in the towns in the northwest corner, some of the biggest spike in housing costs of any part of the state, so we need to work on that. I want to touch on a couple specific things because I agree with a lot of what's already been said. So healthcare. Rural healthcare is losing it in addition to it being costly. And so I want to talk about things that we have actually, and I have actually done. One of which is to open a new healthcare center in Canaan that takes anybody, no matter your ability to pay, you can go there and get high quality healthcare. It is a highly regarded health center, and it's going to serve a bunch of towns in the northwest corner and really improve access and help people's costs with healthcare. I also want to talk about, like Steve mentioned, we did. So I chair the finance committee. I'm responsible for the revenue end of it, and one of the things that I learned taking a look at that is we have an incredibly complicated tax code, and it makes it really hard for people who have good intentions to actually pay their taxes. And I am trying, one of the things, my goals is to try to wrestle some of that into some better transparency. But we did pass the biggest tax cut in Connecticut history in that budget, the first budget that I was responsible for, and I'm very proud of that, and it's not easy to fight for that because I'm sitting in that room. We also cut taxes on retirement income. I mentioned that I grew up in Ohio. I filed my mother's taxes for many years, never paid taxes on her retirement income until I moved her to Connecticut, and welcome to Connecticut, Mom. So I have been whittling away at that. It's a very costly thing. It takes revenue away from the state of Connecticut, so it is not easy to do, but we're whittling away at that as well. Others mentioned property taxes. Property taxes are a problem in Connecticut. We are unique, not unique, but we're unusual that we do not have county government, which means that we have 169 towns, very reliant, too reliant, I would argue, on the property tax. That is the least progressive part of our tax system, which means that people with lower incomes tend to pay a higher rate, largely because of that property tax. That's municipal. We can't do anything about that. We could force it on communities, but towns don't like that very much when the state forces them to do certain things. So we tend not to do that. Okay, I'm going to shut up. You're going to ring the bell for real.
Moderation is going well.
Those of us who I chair a committee, I'm used to hearing the bell go off, and I'm used to enforcing the 3-minute rule against other people, so I want to be respectful.
Barbara.
Okay, so we do need to help the small business. The business climate in the state of Connecticut is what's going to produce the jobs to keep the people here. Right now, we are in the top 5 of the highest business taxes in the country. So with that being said, we also have to do something about childcare. I struggled for years trying to find childcare for my child in this town. Thankfully, we did have somebody that finally opened up, but they couldn't afford to stay in business because it just got too crazy with the inspections and between the state and the local and everybody else, and they finally went belly up. We have to entice, create incentives for doctors to come here. I drive an hour for a dermatologist. You can't find anybody in this area that you can get into in the next 9 months. So I go to UConn. State mandates. Okay, state mandates are tough. We're going to impose upon you that you have to do something. We'll use early voting for an example. You have to do this for 14 days. We're going to give you some money, but that money comes from our pockets. So once that money runs out, the towns are still relied upon to do these things, and we still have to come up with that money. So we have to think very wisely of the laws that we pass before we pass them, because it does come down to our pockets in the end. So I think I'm going to leave it at that.
Given those answers, you guys hit upon about half of these questions. So it does. But I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of what Barbara was saying there with the next question, which is, what do you
they're doing. They're creating jobs, so they're paying taxes for workman's comp. Then they have to pay manufacturing taxes, and they have to pay all these other wonderful taxes. And it's just tax upon tax upon tax. Pretty soon, the well runs dry. There's no more money. So do we borrow more money? Or do we actually decide to pick up, leave the state, go someplace where they're more business friendly? We're seeing a lot of businesses in the state go south, or even across the borders. And we actually have to do something to help them. We have to stop telling them that they have to have sick leave for one employee. If you're a part-time employee, I've worked many jobs in my life. I worked 7 part-time jobs at one point in my life, just to make ends meet. I knew they were part-time jobs. If I got sick, I knew that I had to do something else, and I had to cut, maybe getting my hair cut, or cut a few extra coupons out of the flyers to be able to afford to eat. But this is things that you have to realize. It's hard to be a working mom and take the time off to go get your sick kid out of school. But that's something I do as a parent, and I understand that. And it's something that my employer is nice enough to understand as well. And sometimes the employer is nice enough to say, hey, you know what? You've been a good employee. Let me see if I can help you out a little bit. So I feel that, we've got to stop pushing businesses away. We have to start embracing them. Maria.
Thank you. So a lot of small businesses in Connecticut are what was known as S corporations, which means that the taxes that they pay are really personal income tax. They're not business taxes. We've set up all kinds of systems in Connecticut that sort of incentivizes that kind of structure because it does reduce the levels of taxation. Not all businesses, but a lot of small businesses are in that category, which is why the work that we've done to reduce income tax rates, particularly at the lower levels where businesses are starting out, really makes a big difference if you are starting out in a small business. So I'm very proud of that work, and I'm going to stand by that. We also, I want to note, a lot of, when we're talking about some of the bigger businesses that have left Connecticut, a lot of the reason when we ask them why they've left, and I've had this conversation with the commissioner of the Department of Revenue Services and various others in the state government, a lot of them, what they talk about is labor market. They can't find employees. And so understanding that we are also competing for attracting young workers to Connecticut. Because that's what when you talk to businesses about why they leave, that's part of what they talk about that they don't have access to. So if we're providing an attractive labor environment for them, including sick leave, and believe me, during the pandemic, we learned a thing or two about the cost of having to show up at work when you're sick and spreading that throughout, because then people can't work and you're causing a lot more damage in the long run. Or if you have kids that are sick. Understanding that we want to attract young workers to Connecticut so they're available to businesses is also an important part of that conversation.
A couple things. So, we talked about taxes before, right? And obviously taxes impact small businesses as well. So we can have that conversation all over again. But again, reducing our tax burden upon residents, upon small businesses is a helpful thing. All in part that you have to reduce the size of government and our growing bureaucracy in our government to make that possible. So that's one aspect of that, right? Marie mentioned a point about property taxes. Some businesses, particularly the agricultural community that has property and land, obviously property taxes play a role there. We can, at the state, impact that. We could fully fund, do a better job of funding excess costs. We could do a better job of funding ECS to the communities. In addition to that, we can do a better job of keeping a highlight on our municipal mandates. I mean, we have a town CEO right here who can tell us how much it costs from Hartford, the mandates that we place upon municipalities, and that cost. If you reduce that burden of municipalities, you could see a potential reduction in property taxes from that. We talked about small businesses. I touched on FMLA before. Again, a noble cause, but reducing it down to literally one employee, it puts a burden and a regulatory burden on so many small businesses that could literally crush them, could bankrupt these small businesses. So we have to look at the burdensome aspect of our regulations, how that impacts that. Fees. We talk about baking in cost to our electric rates. all of us have paid our car registration lately. And you see the plethora of fees, and every single time you pay, it's more and more and more and more. So not only is it taxes, but it's baking our state government bureaucracy into our costs when we're paying the fees as well. There's an unfair aspect of that in addition. And that impacts small businesses in a huge manner. The other thing too, we talked about healthcare. I supported a plan called associated healthcare plans for our small business owners. This would allow small businesses to kind of create groupings. And for example, for the Bar Association, if you're a solo practitioner, you could join with other lawyers and small law firms and create a Connecticut Bar Association grouping and join an associated healthcare plan. So you're all kind of mitigating that risk across the board. So you're competing then with the bigger corporations in our state government, which offer these more affordable, better healthcare plans. I was a strong supporter of the associated healthcare plans. Unfortunately, because of majority leadership in the Senate, that was defeated for other opportunities, which frankly I think was wrong. That would have done a lot, not only for the employees of these small businesses and for the healthcare they will receive at affordable rates, but also for the small businesses to be far more attractive to bring those employees in and provide better benefits to them.
I was knocking on doors down in New Milford today, and I was stopped by the house of someone that out walking his dog. He was in his 70s. And I asked him what his top concerns were, and he said, you know, I retired this year. I didn't want to. The state of Connecticut made me do it. And I asked, was he a state employee or something? He said, no, he was a private contractor. He did a lot of work restoring houses down in Fairfield County. And he said that what he wanted to do, sort of transitioning into retirement was, work 3 to 6 months a year, and then, take the rest of the year off to, travel or whatever. But he said that the state made him, he couldn't just carry insurance for 3 to 6 months out of the year. He had to carry insurance for the entire year, and it just wasn't worth it to him anymore to run his business. So he retired. I speak to a lot of business owners, a lot of really solid Democratic business owners, and they say, I never consider voting for a Republican, but can you please do something about these mandates that get put on small businesses?
You can let me know.
Fair enough. There are other issues where we disagree on strongly. But again, the Democrats, please do something about these mandates, because they're choking my business, and just making it so difficult to operate as a small business. And I've interviewed the FMLA, the paid sick leave law, and as a business owner myself, and sort of knowing the struggles of small businesses, they're dropping the level from 50 down to all businesses. I have great reservations about that. And so reporters said, "You sound like a Republican." I said, "Oh, what? I'm a small business owner." But dealing with those issues, you're recognizing that the needs and the challenges of small businesses are fundamentally different from the corporations where the CEO gets paid first. I think it is absolutely fundamental and crucial, and I hope to get into the legislature so small businesses can have a strong voice in the majority.
Alright, I'm gonna switch gears a little bit now, and we're gonna talk about black bears. Okay? So I think everybody probably had an encounter with one in some way, shape, or form at this point in time. I know I have scratches on my back deck that I can only attribute to a black bear. So the question is, do you think it's time to support some kind of black bear management program in Connecticut, whether it's robust or moderate? And why don't we start with this? We'll start with.
Senate wants it back.
Yeah,
Senate wants
Yeah,
it back.
Now we have to fight about basic questions, actually.
They do say that the Senate is the enemy.
But they say, what is it?
Well, for us, the Republicans are the opposition, but the Senate is the enemy.
So
yes. And the long answer is long. We have battled recently, I mean, there have been bear bills coming up for many years, which I will say, finally, I think gained traction. We passed a significant bear management bill last year, and it's not as much as everybody wanted, but believe me, just the fact that we allowed farmers to be able to get a permit to take a bear that is, destroying livestock or crops and causing, I mean, these are small farmers that can destroy your farm, and I know that there are those of you in this room who have suffered from damage and depredation of bears in this community. We passed that legislation, and I tell you, it took DEEP, the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, forever to set up that system because they were afraid that they were going to get yelled at by certain advocates. And so I have personally been on the pushing end of them every day until they finally got that. They gave out a pilot permit, and they are now finally issuing permits to farmers in my district who are able to take bears that are destroying their livelihood, in effect. Just today, we've had a bear shot by someone in Cornwall because this bear killed their miniature donkey. On a small farm, and he did what he had to do in the moment to protect his other miniature donkeys on that farm, and had a conversation with DEEP in which somebody at DEEP told him, well, if you're protecting your pet, you're okay. That was part of the legislation we passed that made it clear, which I thought at the time was ridiculous, but it did make it clear that you're allowed to shoot a bear in self-defense of yourself, your family, your pets. But we made it explicit in that bill, and I'm glad we did, because at least that protection is there. I do not think I have personally made this speech in the Environment Committee, and I'll make another one this year, that people in other parts of the state do not understand what it is like for us to live with bears. And I have made the example many times to my colleagues, because part of that legislation we passed was also about stopping intentional feeding. And yes, we do have sloppy habits, and we do have people who intentionally feed bears, believe it or not. So we're shutting that down, and we're shutting down people who have been warned to clean up food sources and haven't done so. But for example, I have fruit trees at my house. Does that make me am I intentionally feeding bears? Because they definitely eat those pears. I have watched them. Farmer, I don't make my living from those fruit trees, but farmers in the area do, and they need to be able to act with speed to defend their property and their livelihood, because we all eat food. So I'm looking forward to pushing this again and doing more to educate, my colleagues in other parts of the state who simply do not understand what it is like in our neck of the woods when bears are not only, eating your fruit trees, but breaking into your homes and your kitchen and your porch. So yes, the short answer, we absolutely need to do more.
So the other day on the news, they were saying that 65 houses in the state of Connecticut have been broken into this year alone by bears, which is higher than usual. Bears have no natural predators. So, we're one of the few states in the area that does not have I don't want to call it a bear hunt, but a bear hunt. Unfortunately, we regulate deer, we regulate turkeys, we regulate coyotes, beavers, and we gotta regulate deers a little bit more. I'm sorry, because I spent 2.5 hours chasing my cows in the woods because the bear decided to chase them out of the field. It was not fun. They are breaking into cars and doing lots of damage. They're breaking into lots of people's houses. Driving down Route 63, you may see one run out of the woods and all of a sudden hit the side of a car. The car gets dented and the bear runs off. The bears are getting a lot more food. They're a lot healthier because they're having 3 and 4 babies now, and that's a sign of a healthy animal, is to have bigger offspring, more offsprings. So we do have to do something to maintain the bears. I'm done.
I went first last.
All right, I got it. So I was recruited by a committee of Democrats to run for this seat. One of the Zoom calls, I told them, listen, I'm a gun owner, and I think we need a bear season. If that's a problem, I'm not the candidate for here. So I made my support for managing the bear population cleared. So Connecticut is the only state with a meaningful bear population in the Northeast that does not manage its bear population. We have 3 times as many home entries per 100 bears as Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and guess what all those states have? They have a bear season. As we've seen the population of bears increase, we've seen the incidence of conflicts increase. It stands to reason that if we reduce the population, so too would the conflicts be reduced. I know many of us sort of think about sort of bears dragging our trash around, maybe attacking pets. But I stopped up at a big dairy farm in Canaan where I'd gone to as a kid. A big dairy farm, much bigger than our dairy farm back in Washington. And I stopped in the office and I asked the farmer, what are your top concerns nowadays? And then he looked and said, bears. And then he came over and showed me a picture of these cornfields. And he was showing me pictures of cornfields where half of the corn was platted by bears. That was $100,000 in damage. That is real money for a farmer in northwestern Connecticut. And so I told him, send me those pictures. It's something else. And walking out the door, I ran into a deep biologist. And we had a long chat about bears and the situation and how they are managed in Connecticut. And so he was there to issue a take permit for that bear. So the farmer or the biologist could go out and take the bear, and after which it would be dumped in a ditch and left to rot. And the deep biologist sort of noted that, just how awful that situation was. So this is another issue where in northwestern Connecticut, it's not that it's bipartisan agreement that we need to manage the bear population.
So, yeah. It's about time we have a regulated hunting season for bears in Connecticut, period. Done. I think that we've seen too many property owners lose pets. We've seen too many property owners lose their crop and assets in the agricultural community. We need hunting season. That's exactly the reason why every year I've been a senator for the past 2 years. I've submitted a bill to create a regulated hunting season. And we're going off of what the deep biologists are saying. The deep biologists are coming in and saying the only way you're going to possibly manage the population of bears is by implementing a hunting season. It's the only way you're going to manage it. And so therefore, the only way we're going to manage it here in the northwest corner is by implementing a statewide black bear hunt. So I do support that. I put that bill in every single year I've been in the Senate. I will continue to do so. I'm fortunate enough to be reelected. Despite that, many in the majority did not agree with a hunt and regulating the population in that regard, and therefore I was happy to work on a bipartisan basis in the Environment Committee as ranking member of the Environment Committee to pass the bear management bill that Representative Horn was mentioning earlier. It takes small steps, albeit small, towards addressing this issue. One, believe it or not, and Representative Horn mentioned it, it wasn't explicit in our state law that you could defend your pets or even your family from an attacking bear. We had to codify that clearly and explicitly in state law. So I was very happy to help champion that legislation and pass that across the finish line to make it explicit for all of our residents in the northwest corner that you can explicitly protect yourself, your pets, from a bear that's attacking you. Number two, it also provided a pilot program that Representative Horn also mentioned that allowed particularly farmers or agricultural people in the agricultural community to apply for a permit for nuisance bears to address the bear on the property. Again, I would have liked to have seen a regulated hunt. I'm going to continue to push that forward because it's the only way we're going to address our bear population. On another note, to talk about, we've all had personal experiences. We all heard about that terrible situation in Morris, where that young boy was attacked, and if not for some better circumstances, thankfully, that were there, it could have been far more tragic, which is scary to think. And I had my 2 children on the trampoline just a week ago, had a black bear walking towards us, I grabbed both of them, ran in the garage, my son turns to me and goes, "Dad, they're usually slow." So I was able to kick on the gears for my son, and my daughter are happy to do that. And the bears come. have some of the strictest laws in the country here in Connecticut when it comes down to guns. I believe that frankly our focus should be more placed on the individuals that are committing crimes with guns and getting illegal guns off of our streets. I was last session proposed a number of measures that would have enhanced crimes for individuals that commit crimes with guns, as opposed to impacting legal law-abiding gun owners here in the northwest corner of our state. Unfortunately, that was summarily rejected by the majority. In addition to that, I was happy to support an amendment to legislation which would have stopped an individual from being able to get a clean slate erasure of their record if they committed a crime with a gun. That was also summarily rejected. So you look at ways that we can properly address and strengthen our focus on individuals that are committing crimes with guns, as opposed to the good law-abiding gun owners that we may have in the northwest corner of our state. That's number one. Number two is, you look at the police accountability bill that was passed just 2 years ago in Hartford. If you talk with police officers, and I talk with many of them throughout the northwest corner, I know many of them, I'm friends with many of them, they will tell you that the number one way they were able to get illegal weapons off of our streets and off of everywhere in every corner of our state of Connecticut was through consent searches. That police accountability bill removed consent searches and made them illegal. So think about that for a second. We, by passing that bill, removed the number one mechanism per police from taking illegal guns off of our communities. I mean, so these are all policies where we could be enhancing our laws, putting our focus on individuals committing crimes with guns, getting illegal guns off of our streets, out of our communities. That's where our focus should be when it comes down to guns and protecting all of us. So I believe we have strict gun laws to begin with here in Connecticut. We can do far more towards addressing the issue of individuals committing crimes with guns across our state. I think it's good for public safety here in Connecticut.
So this is a topic where Stephen and I, the Republicans, might disagree a little bit. So I do agree that getting guns out of the hands of individuals that should not have them, it should absolutely be a priority. But I think there still is more that we can do here in Connecticut. This session, there was a proposal to keep guns out of polling places, which to me, in this heated political environment, does not seem unreasonable. And I say that as a gun owner. But that proposal was dropped due to the threat of a filibuster by Republicans in the Senate. Last year, there was a gun safety bill that the majority passed, and some Republicans supported it.
One Republican.
But Senator Hardy did not. To his credit, he did support the bump stock ban back in 2018. State and local politics is very local, but we have to be mindful of what's coming down from the federal level. The bump stock ban that I mentioned was important because the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the federal bump stock ban. And so Connecticut's laws that were in place were important to keep bump stocks out of Connecticut. So it is important that we have a legislature in Connecticut that continues to move the ball forward, and we have representatives that feel that is important. I will also say, as a gun owner, on the implementation and the regulation side, there's a whole lot of streamlining that can be done. When I moved out to Connecticut, I was pleased to see that they still had my hunter safety certificate from 1993 on file in the database. Found that a little creepy, but the hurdles that I had to go through in order to buy ammunition for my rifles and shotguns was extraordinary. It seemed needlessly complex, and I could see how it would turn a gun owner that believes in common sense regulation into someone who's kind of frustrated at government and what they're doing with regard to guns. So here's another case where I think it'd be very beneficial to have a gun owner in the majority who can speak as a gun owner when these regulations are being, these statutes are being written and dealt with.
Either one.
I'll go. Okay. I agree with so much of what's said here, but first of all, I just want to make sure that we note Connecticut does have some of the strictest gun protection legislation in the country, and as a result of that, we have among the lowest gun violence deaths in the country. So they work, and it's worth paying attention to that. I have, since I've been in office, I have one particular guy who runs a gun shop in the district that I have become friends with because he has been, first of all, he's very good on the details of actually how the gun trade works. Is a hunter himself. My favorite thing to do with my father growing up was to go target shooting, mostly at coffee cans in the backyard. They were cheap. So we also own guns, and it is part of the tradition. It's part of, and hunters are environmentalists. This is woven into what we do here. And so to make sure that when we talk about this, that we are not, we are careful to protect the law-abiding gun owners, and that is what we have in the northwest corner of Connecticut, and this particular guy who runs a gun shop is exactly that. He believes in the strong protections, including our red flag laws that have helped us remove weapons from people who are deemed dangerous or threat to themselves or others. We have excellent laws, and they are reducing the mortality rates of guns in our state. I am a former federal prosecutor. I have prosecuted gun crimes. I have seen what guns can do in crime. I know what it means to have a ghost gun that disappears from the record and is just a perfect device to be used in crime, to destroy serial numbers from a weapon that makes it untraceable. These cause havoc, and if you think they cause havoc out here, this isn't just about mass shootings, this is about people who live in urban areas who are under the threat of gun violence all the time. I'm very proud of our gun laws, and I'm very proud of the fact that the rhetoric that I've used in support of them does not throw shade onto the responsible gun owners who very much believe in gun safety. I also supported, Justin mentioned taking guns out of polling places. I think that would have been a good strengthening of our laws. I think another thing that we might be able to take a look at is straw purchases. So if you look at guns, we have a lot of guns in this country, more guns than people. They are not actually spread out equally among everyone. We have guns, people who come in and buy 20, 30, 40, 50 guns. And they're not doing that because they want to hunt bears. They're doing that because they're getting into the gun business and the illegal gun business. And so paying attention to those what are called straw purchases sometimes is also very important if we want to make sure that we protect the responsible hunters and gun owners in our district.
Okay, so again, I agree a lot with what Senator Harding said. There's a lot behind the gun laws, and it's very hard to understand. The legal gun owner is not the one going out there shooting people. Mass shootings in general, the United States is not very high up there. We're up there, but not, Norway's the top one. They have more deaths per capita in Norway for mass shootings than we do in the United States, and they have a lot stricter gun laws than we do. There's a lot of world countries out there that have stricter gun laws than we do. Mental health is a key issue with shootings. We have to really focus on mental health again. The mental health crisis, especially after COVID, there's a lot of people that suffer anxiety, and some people just don't want to be around anymore, and they decide that, well, I'm going to take myself out, I might as well take out this one with me or that one with me as well. 3D printers is another thing you're going to have to look at if you're really going to enforce gun laws, because you can produce a gun with a 3D printer, a functioning one. Pretty scary. You want to do something bad enough, there are ways and means to do things out there. The internet's beautiful to teach you how to do it. So it's not the legal gun owners that should be punished, it should be the people, the criminals that are getting these guns illegally and obtaining things illegally. We have to persecute them and go after them a lot harder than we have been.
So
yes, school safety is an issue sort of near and dear to all of our hearts. I think it was 1997 was Columbine, that happened, and that was such a horrific thing, and then there's been horror after horror after horror, ever since then. I have a 6-year-old and 9-year-old, and Steve has the 2 kids of similar age as well. I do think safety in terms of sort of hardening is important to some extent. Providing funding for officers could make some sense, but what I hear about when talking with teachers in so many of our school districts, that they don't bring up sort of a fear of a mass shooting so much as they bring up concerns about the lack of funding for mental health for students within their schools. We're having such a tremendous issues with post-COVID. These kids who spent a year or 2 without getting socialized, coming back to schools. You add in the cell phones, and it just creates such a crisis for so many kids, which are not adequately addressed within our schools. And just more broadly in society, we have such a mental health issue and crisis. And I think if we were to, a thing about being a legislator is that you have to sort of consider the trade-offs, and you're dealing with scarce resources. How do we best invest the scarce resources that we have? If I had to choose between someone, a school resource officer and a mental health professional for a school, I think the school would be better off with the mental health professional.
So, a couple things. One is, as Justin mentioned, we have school-age children. I have a 6-year-old son who goes to Canada Lake Elementary in Brookfield. It's a sore spot for me because I used to go to center school in Brookfield, but they just built a new school the first year my son hit kindergarten, so he didn't get to go to the school that I went to. But Canada Lake Elementary is a beautiful school, and we both have kids at school age, so it's obviously of utmost importance to me. Unfortunately, Canada Lake Brookfield Schools was one of those schools that received a threat a few months back, and it's shattering to the professionals that are there, the educational professionals, to the students. It impacts everybody, and it's detrimental to obviously everyone's mental health. No student should have to worry about that in the classroom. No teacher, no educational professional doesn't belong anywhere in our society. It's not a prank. It's not a joke. It's a crime. If you do something like that, you should go to jail. So one of the things that we should be looking at is enhancing the crimes when it comes down to individuals that are sick enough to do something like that and put a threat on one of these school systems. We also should be looking at finding ways to give funding to local law enforcement and our state troopers to investigate these crimes. Far too often we hear about the crime, and it's very difficult to track down the sick individual that actually makes that threat. Whatever assistance they may need from the state level, they should get in being able to investigate and prosecute these individuals that are doing this. We need to send a message. This is inappropriate, it is wrong, and you're doing great harm to our communities and to our children, our students, our educational professors. And there was an effort in Hartford, from some of the majority, to remove SROs from our schools. That is the last thing we should be doing right now. If anything, we should be enhancing funding towards our school resource officers. They are the bedrock to so many of our communities. These police officers are great to have in our schools. I support them being in our schools fully. My son loves his SRO at Canada Lake Elementary. I know so many students right in the Northwest corner that are fortunate enough to have a police officer in the schools, getting to know them, forming that relationship, and they're also there to protect the students, protect the educational professionals. I would oppose any legislation to remove those school safety offers and the school resource officers from our schools. In addition to that, we should be directing funding to communities that want to hire these school resource officers. They're protecting our most valuable assets in our community, and we thank them for doing the great job they do for us.
My son was in first grade when Sandy Hook happened, so that was a very scary thing for me. I remember meeting my school bus. Sorry. Anyways, we don't need to lock down the schools as much much as we are, because our students all should be free to roam and experience school life in itself without making it a prison for them. Right now, Region 20 is like a prison when you go up there. You ring the doorbell, you have to sit in your car waiting for the student to come out. You can't even go into school. It's a scary thing. Anyways, so get back to the mental health. Mental health in the schools, if you don't control mental health, that's when you get the threats. Because I don't want to be in school, so you know what? I'm gonna tell this one, or I'm gonna leave a bullet in the bathroom, or I'm gonna do something like that, just so I can get out of school. You don't need to have school going on this fast. Guns in school scares me. I don't care if it's a resource officer, if it's a cop. If the cop gets enough kids jumping him, then that gun can go into the wrong hands. It can go off. So I do believe that there should be police presence in the school. Bring back the DARE programs at a young age. The DARE programs will get the students used to officers and not afraid of the officers anymore. And they start building a bond with the officers, and it helps them. Anyways, I guess that's it.
I mean, I'm gonna start off adopting a lot of what Barbra said. I really worry about our kids. I mean, first of all, we know we are enduring a mental health, our kids are enduring mental health crisis. We are in a scary moment. And I worry about the militarization of our schools and having kids reminded every day going through their doors that this is teaching them that school is a scary place. I worry about that a lot because the mental health, this is at the bedrock of a lot of our challenges, and it's making life difficult and dangerous for teachers because of the mental health challenges the kids are going through. That's so the conversation about SROs, for example, that is a highly individuated conversation. These conversations belong not to the state telling the community what to do, but driven by that community having those conversations. I used to chair public safety. I have had those conversations with a lot of different school districts. Some of them have great relationship with those school resource officers and love that. Others in communities where the relationship with the police, like it or not, is a little bit more fraught, don't like it. I have had a parent describe to me a very hostile encounter with an SRO at his school when he was trying to help his daughter through a mental health crisis. It is not a one-size-fits-all thing. I agree with Barb that it really concerns me if we're putting guns in the schools. I worry about that. I think we have to make sure that we ground those conversations in the school community. So we're talking about children's mental health and that being, again, related to school safety in terms of teachers, among other things. I would like to see us ban cell phones in schools. The governor had a very weak proposal on this as part of one of his proposals. It dropped out of some of the final negotiation, in part because it was just a proposal to study the proposal. Some of our schools in the area have done that, and I do think that it is showing promise of improving mental health, improving student performance, and I think we have to look seriously at that. Don't underestimate how hard it will be to do that at your school if you're thinking about it, but I think we ought to take that seriously, and I'm looking forward to looking at that proposal.
We're going to turn back to some more very local issues here. So how would you address Connecticut solid waste issues in an environmentally friendly way and cost-effective manner? Because I think this is an issue that I think Goshen is dealing with right now. So we started the last couple with Senate, so we're going to go back over to the House. Sorry, I'm trying to be fair. So either one of you can take whichever one it is.
Okay, so we're going to talk trash. This is another complicated, boring conversation, but so yes, since the Mirror plant closed, we are enduring a crisis of solid waste that is, no matter what brings you into it, if you're an environmentalist, if you care about your property, your mill rate in your town, if you care about environmental, whatever your concern is, we need to do something about this because it is a blinking red light, because it's costly, and right now we're shipping our garbage out of state, which is expensive and wrong for 100 environmental reasons. So chair of the finance committee. My co-chair is from Hartford. He represents the part of the state that includes the Mira site. It is a toxic dump. It was not a good neighbor, and they are sick of hosting it. So I get why they didn't want to have it anymore, and they would like that place cleaned up and turned into something else. So this solution, this problem is going to have multiple solutions. There is no one solution. One of them, we put in the bond bill in finance last year, we put an additional $10 million to help pay for both increased solid waste diversion programs and also looking to invest in a newer, more environmentally friendly waste to energy plant. I have been on roundtables with chief electeds from around the state. Some of them have expressed interest in possibly hosting one of these under the right terms. So I think we have the possibility to do that. Also in increasing capacity with the existing waste energy plants. If we are able to really focus on diverting organics, and we make a little progress with that every year, but we need to keep pushing that, we can get up, anywhere 1/3 to 40% of the garbage out of that solid waste stream. So it's reduced. We can do things like in the Environment Committee, extended producer responsibility, which moves that. Right now, if you're producing a product and putting it in packaging, you don't have to pay for the cost of what happens to that packaging in the long term. So you don't really care. I mean, no shade. You're making your own economic decisions. You're going to make a decision that's the best to protect that product and to get it safely where it's going. We need to move that decision up to the producers so they can say, this material is cheaper in the long run. Maybe I should use, to get rid of in the long run. And this one's going to cost me a lot of money because I'm going to have to deal with this product forever. So I think we need to do more to push that decision up so the person making those decisions can help eliminate some of that packaging, get the organics out of the stream, and invest more money in new waste energy.
Shipping our garbage out of state scares me. Been a lot of train derailments lately, and I don't want my garbage on the side of Ohio's highways. What happens when Pennsylvania no longer wants her trash? Where does it go next? Ohio? After Ohio? Arizona? Gonna fill the Grand Canyon? I don't know. We have to do something. So the trash to energy plants have become environmentally more friendly. And I believe that the trash to energy plant is going to be helpful in the long run. It's gonna cost us money to start it. But once it gets up and running, it's gonna help us with electricity as well. So, that's where I plan on spending my time. Thank you for your help in that.
So I think both Representative Horn and Barbara addressed, the unacceptability of the fact that we are in this area of the state, and many communities here in this area of the state, shipping our garbage from here out to Pennsylvania in many circumstances. And not only is that bad for a cost perspective, it's gonna raise those tipping fees to we talk about the cost of living crisis. That also contributes to it. A lot of municipalities have to pay a higher property tax burden, or force a higher property tax burden, because they're paying higher tipping fees. It was once a workable system, it no longer is. And when you're shipping garbage out, it's gonna cost more. In addition to that, it's not environmentally friendly to be shipping garbage out and the exhaust that comes for it, etc. So it's an unacceptable solution we currently have now. So we have to take steps towards addressing the waste here in Connecticut as opposed to shipping out of state. And how do we do that? One aspect of it is funding. I did support that bond package that Representative Horn mentioned. I would have provided $10 million in funding towards addressing this issue and addressing the waste here in the state of Connecticut. In addition to that, we look at the existing infrastructure we have here now. It has to, I think that the solution primarily that we're going to get from addressing a large amount of the waste and addressing it here in the state of Connecticut is through the existing infrastructure that we have. Maria will tell you, it's impossible to site these locations, or next to impossible to site new locations. So if you look at the existing infrastructure we have that does exist, if we can expand on it and improve it, you can increase the amount of waste they can take on, which then can allow our communities to take our waste down to, let's say, Bristol, I know there's a facility there, and take an increased responsibility there, which finally we're addressing our waste here in the state, as opposed to shipping it out. So I think there's ways we can help do that, and help companies do that. The Green Bank is one example. There are far more efficient ways we could be spending money in the Green Bank. I think this is one of the areas, parochially to the area that I'm fortunate enough to represent, to invest funding from the Green Bank towards improving existing infrastructure we have in our state to address the waste crisis, because it is a crisis, to address the waste crisis we have here in the state of Connecticut. I also think we can look at some new technology. I think, Representative Horton and Barbara both mentioned the fact that there is new technology that is coming on the pike, and I've spoken with the governor's office about this as well, where they're potentially smaller, they have zero carbon emissions, and also could utilize the machinery to create electricity or energy from it. And so I'd like to see ways we can invest in this new technology that is coming onto our systems and really take advantage of it to address our waste crisis here in the Northwest Corner.
I will say, it is not fun to be the last person on an issue where there's a bipartisan agreement. What do I have to add to this conversation? I will summarize the various good ideas. We'll start with Steve. I'm not sure what this technology is, but it sounds good. Maria mentioned the importance of getting organics out of the waste stream. In Kent, we started a pilot program. So Kent is fortunate to be an HRRA. We're down there. It's a situation that folks in Europe. But we started an organics recycling program, and it proved to be very successful last year. I think they said it was 18 tons of organic waste diverted from the stream, so I think that's very important. For Barbara, I agree. The whole concept of us shipping trash outside of the state is it's ridiculous. It's irresponsible. We should not be shipping our problems to other communities and making it their problems. Then going back to Maria, I think extended producer responsibility is something that we need to look at. This year, I can't move to a pay-as-you-throw system, or Lynn knows we get these orange bags. You got this, put stuff in. And you have to pay by the bag, and it sort of led to conversations about all the packaging that we get from various companies, and how much that packaging that the companies probably think nothing about because they don't have to pay for it. So to surround their products in. So I think sort of exploring that would be helpful. I think the one thing that I'll add, it wasn't explicitly stated here, but I think that the state needs to take a much more active role in sort of coordinating the response. Individual towns have been getting together to try to figure out, what life after Mira was going to look like. I think that the state can and should take a more active role in sort of orchestrating, and I think most importantly, providing the resources for the Northwestern Connecticut to do the right thing about trash. So, thank you.
Important for us to have a discussion in the legislature about what to do other than asking for federal money when we have disasters, such as the flooding one we just saw recently in Oxford and South Barry, and natural disasters in that regard. You just mentioned, the state doing something, more proactive. Do you think this is an area where the state should be more proactive, rather than having to rely on federal money? We can start with Seth.
Absolutely. The state should and must be more proactive. With climate change, we are seeing hotter summers. But the big thing that we're seeing and having a real impact on us is the flooding, the deluges that we are seeing. I was at a birthday party and we were just having talking about rings and things, and a contractor brought up, clients complain about their gutters not working anymore. And the gutter's fine. The gutter just was not designed for the volume of rain we get so quickly. nowadays. So I think that we have to be very proactive in terms of when opportunities arise and the funds are available to to build our infrastructure so it can accommodate these huge rain events, and sort of also recognize that our pattern of building nowadays in terms of we love our parking lots, we love parking, abundant parking, but abundant parking creates impermeable surfaces that lead to these flash floods. So we need to look at ways to mitigate that while still providing adequate parking for us. But the impacts of climate change are here, they are real, and we need to do something about it. And so if it's expanded to the issues of climate change generally and natural disasters, we have to get serious about heat waves and how we are handling those, and how we are sort of setting our citizens, residents to deal with those things. I knocked on the door of a woman in Milford when it was 90 degrees in June after we had a series of 90-degree weeks, and I asked her what her top concern was, and she said it was cooling her modest ranch home. She had a traditional air conditioner which cost an arm and a leg to operate. I asked her if she knew about air source heat pumps, which were expensive but have much lower operating costs. She said that she did, and in fact her husband was an HVAC professional who spends all day, every day installing things. And they were going to install one when they could afford to do so. I think the state can play a great role in terms of addressing affordability in Connecticut by installing these air source heat pumps, while also doing something about climate change in terms of sort of reducing our energy consumption.
So there's multiple approaches to that. I mean, could we find an investment? I think we'd be all hard pressed to argue that it's not a wise investment to maybe find funds and invest in preparing for, God forbid, these weather emergencies that we continue to see, unfortunately, far too often, from climate change here in not only the state of Connecticut, across the country, across the globe. So yes, would that be a better use of spending money than many other areas? Absolutely. So we can have that discussion. I also think that when it comes down to what we can do at the state level, far too often you hear from, and I've heard from many constituents throughout the 30th district and the northwest corner of our state, that when, God forbid, these natural disasters occur, that there's a state aspect to certifying damage that was done, working in collaboration with the federal government to get that funding directed towards the individuals that need the help. And you hear these heart-wrenching stories about the fact that they can't get in contact with individuals, DEEP won't come out, other agencies haven't come out, won't respond to them, have put red tape on the paperwork and have created more bureaucracy surrounding simply trying to get a reimbursement for what they rightly deserve in terms of the natural disaster they had to incur and the property damage and other damages that they had to, financial damages they incurred based upon these weather emergencies that we've unfortunately seen an uptick in. I think we can do far better in creating an efficient government in Hartford. We have right now, since the COVID pandemic, have had many employees that haven't even fully returned to work. So when individuals call up departments and agencies, the phone just continues to ring and they never get callbacks. That is unacceptable. That is absolutely unacceptable. When you call your government, you should be able to get a response, and a response quick. And they should be there to help, particularly in instances in which individuals are simply just trying to get money back from the money and property damage they've lost in these weather emergencies. So one of the best ways I think we can take a significant step towards expediting, even finding federal financing from coming into the northwest corner or any aspect of our state after these weather emergencies is creating a more efficient and a better operating state government for all of you. You deserve better than what we currently have.
So, flooding is a hard issue to deal with. There's a 100-year floodplain out there for a lot of people that you may not know about. Palmetto is water's gotta go somewhere. So I don't know if it's a matter of looking at the way that the water flows and where, if we should be able to create more dams, better waterways, spillways, maintaining the health of our lakes and streams and stuff like that is another very important thing. You cannot have the silt flowing into the stream and expect the stream to run properly. The weeds that we have that are being invasive, they're slowing down the flow of the water. So the water's not dispersing as fast as it should be dispersing. The other thing that worries me about these natural flooding and everything else is the insurance companies. It's an act of God. Well, that's what it is, an act of God. Why are the insurance companies dumping us after we have an act of God? So they should be helpful to us. We pay our premiums, we paid the premiums for 50 years, and next thing you know, we're getting dumped because our basement wall decided to cave in. And that's really hard on a homeowner. And now I'm turning it over to you.
So the first is, yes, I do think we need some more resources, but I have some more specific. First, I also want to just note, because I do chair the finance committee, of the tension between saying, we need more resources, but we don't want to pay any more government, money from the government. So, because I sit in that room, I'm very aware of that tension, and I hear that a lot when people focus on a particular issue. So, just note that for observation. We have to make, at the end of the day, all this add up. But let's talk a minute about, so Goshen and Norfolk in particular, also got hit with historic flooding. And that's a lot of them. And this, I think, is typical of, we're gonna get hit by it again. We didn't qualify for federal aid because the damage to we weren't big enough. We didn't have enough expensive damage. Our neighboring states, I think both Massachusetts and Vermont, both qualified under that same weather system. But we didn't, because we didn't have enough. The more recent flooding did qualify because it's more expensive territory, and it was bigger, it was more focused in Connecticut. You have to pass a certain threshold of damages. So that's going to be a fact of life for us. We're going to get hit with these kinds of weather systems. There may be federal money out there, but we may not qualify for it. So if we're going to do something that's actually focused on the costs that are hitting our communities, we need to set up a system that acknowledges that. And that has some, because there is some state resources that have come out, and I toured those roads with Todd, and I know DOT came out here, and there's still a lot of conversation both in Norfolk and in Goshen about repairing of that damage today. But we need to make sure that those state resources are getting deployed in a targeted way that also acknowledges that some communities aren't going to qualify for that federal aid. So I hope that's part of our conversation.
I'm looking at the time, and I know it's getting past 8 o'clock, so I'm gonna ask one more question, and then I'll give it, each candidate a chance to do kind of closing after that question is over. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, perfect. So, one of the things that you all deal with is the fact that, I think, Maria and Barbara, you would be representing 9 different towns, I think. 18 for Goshen, at least, if not all of those towns, part of those towns in a couple of instances. And those are pretty big territories to cover, so that may have diverse needs. And one of the other questions that we have coming from the audience is, how important or how required do you feel to espouse your state or national political party's platform and identity when dealing with the individual issues from your plethora of individuals? I know that's kind of a big question that may not have been has a lot of sense, so I just rephrase it a little bit. We have diverse needs in all of your towns. How do you balance all of that? How do you take your positions and make them and bring them to your local level in all
So, I'm very aware that I have a large district. It travels, I have to keep reminding people in Rockford that the north-south axis of my district is an hour and 20 minutes. I mean, it is a big district, we have diverse needs. So the answer to the question is a little bit nuanced, but in terms of my representation, I represent this district all the time. That's who I am, that's why I ran for this office. And particularly right now, this is the season where we are out knocking on doors and there is no substitute for going to people's homes and meeting them on their doorstep and asking them what's going on in their lives. You learn things. I learn things every single day. I do that, and there's no substitute for that. Rather than if you just wait around for people to come to you, you get the same 5 people all the time. Great people, but it's not the same. That said, those of us who chair committees, and I do chair one of the 2 biggest committees in the legislature. My job in chairing that committee is, in fact, to make sure that everybody on that committee is heard. I make darn sure that rural communities get heard in that community and that we are reflected in the priorities of that agenda. But it is the job of the legislature, and I think I'm proud of the way that Connecticut goes about doing this business. I just did the math on this the other day of my votes this term. Over more than 3/4 of the legislation we passed this year was overwhelmingly bipartisan. That means like fewer than 25 more votes. That's a choice, and that is a proud tradition, that we decide that we listen to other people, we compromise, we work together to make sure we pass legislation that can have as many people support it as possible, and I believe strongly that that represents durable legislation that will provide a stable thing for Connecticut residents to look for. So in my advocacy, I am 100%, all my towns, and they do have just diverse needs, although I do represent 9 entire small towns, so there's a lot of commonality there, which helps. But I do also believe in the importance of taking the time to listen to other perspectives, because that's how you get things done in Hartford, and I wish there were more of it happening in the national.
So this is where I fall back on being a town clerk. You have a lot of responsibilities, again, listening to everybody as a whole. Connecticut's not a cookie cutter state. So you would have to go from Norfolk to Washington, 2 total different towns in the same district. But they still all matter. Everybody matters. They may not agree on everything, so you're gonna have to compromise. Here's being a mom. So you have, as a state rep, you are there for the district. The party does not matter. It is the people that matter. And as saying that, national politics play nothing at the state level. They're just totally out there. Whoever's president is president. Everybody decided who the president was going to be. I don't answer to the president. I will never answer to the president. I'm not going that level. So I guess that's, in a nutshell, it is going to be a very diverse thing and a very big learning experience, but it is something that I am willing to take on and listen to everybody, get ideas. I am always open to suggestions. I'm always open to learning things. I am human, and I just love learning things. It is a fun thing to do. So.
My answer to that is, this most important thing is listening. Listening is the absolutely most important thing to understanding the district. And of course, you get out there to listen, across the breadth of the district. The needs are so different and diverse in many ways. Up here, bears, it's bears. The bears are just getting out of Brookfield now that we talk about bears just as fervently as we are down there, in short order. Access to health care. Up here, it's a big issue. But if you're in Brookfield or in Milford, it's not so much of an issue. And sort of getting out there and learning what the differences are, but also the commonalities. Across the board, and I know everyone here hears it. Affordability, cost of living is it cuts across all geographical lines here in And so, I think we have a responsibility as legislators to work on bringing that down. Because there's so many families and businesses that are really struggling out there, that we need to help out, so.
I think that it's funny, because when people ask, how does your district feel about a particular issue, I say, it depends on where you are. The 30th district is so expansive, it's so vast, it's so diverse, that to Justin's point, you go to the southern end of the district, and healthcare is not, or access to healthcare is not as urgent a need as it is in Sharon. When I was working on a bipartisan basis to help keep labor and delivery and intensive care units open at Sharon Hospital. So every single aspect of our district has different needs, different wants. And I think that's why it's critically important that, when you speak with somebody and they talk about the fact that they can't afford to live here in their retirement years because of the taxes and the fees, or you speak with young families, like my own, that are struggling to balance a budget, particularly when that electric bill came in this month. And they were trying to figure out how they're going to make their medical payments, their child care payments. They were trying to figure out how they're going to pay their mortgage, and on top of that, pay their electric bill. It's not a Democrat problem. It's not a Republican problem. It's not an affiliated voter problem. It's a problem. It's a problem for people in the 30th district, period. And so I've always believed that when someone contacts my office, when someone has an issue, they're a neighbor. It doesn't matter what their party affiliation is. It doesn't matter if they're going to vote for me or not. I don't care. I take every single issue as important to me as if it was my next door neighbor, because that's how we work in the Northwest Corner. That's how we should all operate. I'm proud to have the independent party endorsement as well, because I believe working on a bipartisan basis to get things done. You see what happens on cable news, you see what happens in DC, you see the infighting and all the gridlock. And Maria mentioned a point. 80% of what we do in Hartford is almost a unanimous basis, which means we're working together. We need far more of that in this country. And I think the Northwest Corner is a great example of that. So as I said before, we don't have political problems in terms of each individual issue. When you're facing what we're facing here in difficult times with the cost of living crisis, it's not a political party issue. It's a neighbor issue. It's a constituent issue. I will fight for everyone's values, fight for the issues and the needs of everybody, no matter their party affiliation. I think a senator has an obligation to do that, and I'm proud to do that for this district.
About 8:18, I think we wanted to end by 8:30. So we're just going to give each candidate one last opportunity to kind of give a closing remark. But just a quick brief closing remark to end the night, and thank you all for being here. So you can go straight down the road if you like. Sorry.
Well, thank you to the Goshen Business Circle for hosting this forum, and thank you all for coming, and to the candidates for this great conversation on a lot of issues, and many of which were very, there's a lot of bipartisan agreement, and other issues where there's a bit of disagreement. So, I grew up out here with Nancy Johnson as my congresswoman. It was sort of a different era. Like it or not, Democrats, control the legislature in Connecticut. I think it'd be very beneficial for this district to have a seat at the table where decisions are made, in order to get what this district needs, and to make sure that our voices are heard here in the district. So thank you all again. I appreciate it.
I don't have any concerns you guys are going to go over. I think
First off, I want to thank the Goshen Business Circle. I want to thank all of you for coming. Everyone deserves a round of applause for showing up. This turnout, it's the vibrant aspect of our democracy to hear those, to learn about the issues, to ask us as your potential elected officials to see where we stand on the issues, and so that when you get into the voting booth, whenever you vote, whether it be early voting, absentee, whether you vote on election day, that you know where we stand on the issue. So it's critically important that you came, and I think I speak for all of us in thanking you all for making the trek over today to listen to us. It's been an honor to talk to you tonight. It's been an honor outside of the birth of my children, marrying my wife, and she lost a bet and had to marry me. Outside of those incredible milestones in my life, serving as your state senator has been the greatest honor in my life. It really has. And sometimes it's not just the political, it's not the political aspects of it. It's helping out a neighbor when they have a problem with deed, or helping out cutting the red tape on some of these issues, whether it's Department of Insurance when you're dealing with the tragic weather issues that we're dealing with. It's the small issues to seemingly the big issues in Hartford, but it's the biggest issue to the person that's dealing with it at that particular moment. And I've had an opportunity as your state senator to see that firsthand and represent you firsthand in those situations. And it's been the honor to help you as a neighbor in the Northwest Corner advocate for you. I've always been parochial. I want what's best for all of us here, and I'll never apologize for that. Whether it comes down to funding, directing funding to our area of the state, whether it comes down to promoting our area of the state over anywhere else, I will always put the area district first. I was raised here in this community. I continue to raise my whole family here. It's an honor to be your state senator, to be your voice in Hartford. I would love for the opportunity and be humbled by your vote to continue to be your state senator in the 3rd District. So thank you so much for this.
So I will add to all of that to say, first I want to thank those of you who are seated up here with me. Every single one of you has done work seriously serving your communities and not for your own benefit, and I'm proud that we have such a great group of people sitting up here fighting for the right to represent you again or for new, depending on which one of us. I am also endorsed by the Independent Party again this term, and I'm proud of that because I think it at least ties into the way that I have done my work in Hartford. I'm very proud of my values and the Democratic Party. I'm a proud Democrat, but I'm also proud that I have had lots of issues in which I don't, I veer from the party line. I chose that as a way to indicate to people a sign of what I stand for, but then when we talk about the specific things, that's always going to be about what people in the district believe in. I have had many conversations. I learn so much from all of you in the district all the time, and I have a few email conversations that I really treasure with people who I know disagree with my particular ordering of priorities and sometimes write me in a confrontational way, but I write back. And then we have a great conversation back and forth. And I learn a lot, and I know that it builds respect and also just the ability to work together. And I'm proud of those conversations as well. I feel like this job has enabled me to learn to use a lot of the skills that I've learned in my life. Yes, my being in the courtroom and being a federal prosecutor does come in handy on occasion. But also, I've done a lot of work on with nonprofits that are involved in the needs of the community, and that has been really important to me. Being a mom has also basically taught me a lot of patience and and the ability to listen, even when it's quite heated. So it's really, I'm very grateful that you all have given me the opportunity to do that, and I hope that I will have the opportunity to continue to serve you in the 64th. Thank you.
They say the best is last. This has been a wonderful experience, and I thank you all for entertaining this. Competition is good, it's healthy, keeps people honest, and that's why I was happy to throw my name in the ring. We hear you loud and clear about the electricity and the bears and the healthcare and affordability, and one way or another, it will get done, because the people will speak and the people, hopefully the representatives, will listen.